You paid the rent. You paid the utilities. The credit card minimum is covered. The car payment went through. Nothing is overdue. No red notifications. No urgent emails. Technically, you're fine. So why can't you relax? Why does your chest still feel tight? Why does your brain keep running background calculations? Why does it feel like something bad is about to happen, even when everything is handled? This is the part no one really talks about. Paying your bills isn't the same as feeling safe. It used to be. There was a time when bills paid meant stability. You worked, you paid what you owed, you exhaled. But now, bills paid just means you survived this cycle. It doesn't mean you're ahead. It doesn't mean you're secure. It doesn't mean you're untouchable. It just means you made it to the next due date. And that's not the same thing as peace. Let's start with something simple. When you pay your bills, you're covering the present. You're not protecting the future. That's a huge difference. Bills are reactive. They're obligations. They reflect decisions already made. Rent, insurance, subscriptions, loans, utilities. They are commitments from the past demanding money today. Paying them keeps the system stable, but it doesn't create breathing room. Breathing room comes from surplus, from margin, from knowing that if something shifts, you won't collapse. And most people don't have that. So even when everything is paid, your nervous system doesn't register safety. Because deep down, you know one disruption could change everything. A job change, a medical issue, an unexpected repair, a rent increase. Bills paid doesn't erase vulnerability. It just postpones it. Another reason you can't relax. Your expenses don't stop, they loop. The rent you just paid, it's coming back in 30 days. The card you just paid down, it will refill with groceries and gas. The insurance premium, due again next month. Your financial life is cyclical, so there's no finish line, no moment where you say, it's done. It's never done. It's maintained, and maintenance is exhausting. There's also something psychological happening. You've learned that stability is fragile. You've seen layoffs. You've seen markets drop. You've seen costs rise unexpectedly. Even if your situation is okay right now, you don't trust that it will stay that way. So your brain stays alert. Alert feels like tension. Tension feels like stress. Stress feels like something's wrong. But nothing is technically wrong. You're just bracing. Bracing becomes a habit. Another layer. Bills represent survival, not growth. When your entire focus is on covering survival, your brain stays in survival mode. Survival mode is not calm. It's vigilant. It scans for threats, even small ones. A slightly higher grocery bill, a higher than expected utility charge, a weird email from your bank. Your brain flags them as potential danger. Because when margin is thin, small changes matter. If you had a year of expenses saved, a $200 fluctuation wouldn't register. But when you're operating close to the edge, every fluctuation feels loud, even if everything is technically paid. There's also the issue of delayed gratification. You work hard, you handle responsibilities, you do the right things, but you don't feel rewarded. You feel neutral or tired. That's because paying bills doesn't activate a strong positive emotion. It removes a negative one. Relief is not the same as joy. Relief fades quickly, then the next obligation appears. It's like holding your breath underwater and surfacing just long enough to inhale before going back down. You're not drowning, but you're not floating either. You're managing oxygen. Let's talk about margin more deeply. Margin is the difference between income and obligations. Not income and spending, income and obligations. If most of your income is already committed before the month starts, you have very little flexibility. Flexibility equals calm. When flexibility shrinks, stress grows, even if everything is technically under control. Another invisible reason you can't relax: future thinking. Modern life forces you to think ahead constantly. Retirement, healthcare, rising costs, job market shifts, automation. You're not just paying today's bills, You're aware of tomorrow's uncertainty. That awareness is smart, but it's heavy. Your brain is juggling two timelines, the present and the hypothetical future. And hypothetical futures are usually negative. What if I lose my job? What if rent jumps again? What if the market crashes when I need the money? What if I'm not saving enough? Even when bills are paid, those questions remain unanswered, so calm doesn't arrive. There's also emotional pressure. You probably expected that by now you'd feel more secure, more stable, more confident. If you're earning more than you did 5 years ago but still feel tense, that creates confusion. You think, why don't I feel better? That gap between expectation and reality creates its own stress. You did what you were told. Work hard, be responsible, pay your bills. But the emotional reward didn't scale. So you feel slightly cheated. Not dramatically, just subtly. That subtle dissatisfaction lingers. Another factor, you might not have a clear picture of your long-term trajectory. If you're not tracking net worth annually, if you're not seeing growth trends, it's hard to feel progress. Bills paid is maintenance. Net worth growth is progress. Without visible progress, your brain assumes stagnation, and stagnation feels unsafe, even if it isn't. Let's talk about unpredictability. Costs feel sticky. Prices go up, rarely down. So even when this month is handled, you're aware next month might be heavier. That constant possibility of increase prevents relaxation. You're on stable ground, but the ground feels like it might shift, so you stay braced. There's also emotional fatigue. Making financial decisions constantly is draining. Groceries, insurance, subscriptions, investments, savings, debt payments. Even if you've automated most things, your brain still tracks them. Financial responsibility creates cognitive load, and cognitive load feels like pressure. Pressure doesn't disappear when bills are paid, because the system continues. Now let's address something deeper. Security isn't binary, it's layered. Layer 1, bills paid. Layer 2, emergency fund. Layer 3, long-term savings. Layer 4, diversified income. Layer 5, financial independence. Most people are living at layer 1, maybe dipping into layer 2. So while you're technically stable, you're not structurally secure, and your brain knows the difference. It might not articulate it clearly, but it feels it. You don't relax because your system isn't balanced. It's functioning. Functioning is not the same as resilient. Resilience creates calm. Functioning creates tension. Another piece, comparison. Even if you don't consciously compare yourself to others, you see signals constantly. People buying homes, traveling, investing, upgrading. You measure your internal state against external appearances. And even if you know it's curated, it still influences your perception. You think, if they're doing that, should I be further? Comparison erodes satisfaction, even when you're objectively stable. Let's talk about emotional safety. Financial security isn't just numbers, it's nervous system regulation. If you grew up in instability or experienced financial shocks before, your body remembers. Even when you're fine now, your system may stay alert. You don't relax because you learned not to. Bills paid doesn't undo history. Trust rebuilds slowly. Another angle. Modern stability requires more than it used to. It's not just about rent and food. It's about healthcare, retirement contributions, reliable transportation, technology access, emergency reserves. The baseline for okay has expanded, so paying bills covers more than previous generations dealt with, which means it costs more, which means it feels heavier. And when something costs more effort, it doesn't feel relaxing. It feels earned, temporary. Now, here's something uncomfortable. You might not actually know what number would make you feel safe. If someone asked, how much savings would make you relax, could you answer clearly? For many people, the number is vague, and vague goals create endless tension. Because if you don't know what enough looks like, you never arrive. You just keep bracing. Another reason you can't relax. You've internalized optimization culture. You feel like you should be investing smarter,
saving more, negotiating harder, side hustling, maximizing everything. So even when bills are paid, you feel behind on potential. You're not just trying to survive, you're trying to optimize. Optimization never ends. It creates constant low-grade dissatisfaction. Even success feels insufficient. Let's talk about energy. Working hard to maintain stability consumes emotional energy. If your job is demanding, if your income feels tied to constant performance, bills paid doesn't equal income security. You might fear that if you slow down, income slows down. So you stay tense, even on weekends, because your financial stability feels attached to your output. That connection creates anxiety. Another layer, delayed consequences. You know some financial risks don't show up immediately. Retirement